I the asshole for telling my girlfriend that I don't like the gift she got me and asking for something else? My girlfriend, 22 female, and I, 26 male, have been together for almost 4 years. We live together and she has a stable career and has bought herself a car and was taught to drive in school. I was never taught to drive and it's not really necessary because I can Uber, take the bus, or my girlfriend can drive. She's offered to teach me, but I declined because I'm not interested in learning and I don't plan on getting a car because they're a lot of money. My birthday was yesterday and my girlfriend was really excited to give me my gift. It was private driving lessons, which probably cost her hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I was really offended because I don't want to learn to drive. She hyped it up like I love it, but I hate it and it seems more like it's for her. I was upset and disappointed and she kept asking why I didn't like it. I told her I don't care for driving and it seemed like an impersonal gift because I don't even want my license or a car. I felt like she doesn't even know me. She got upset, so I suggest she returns the lessons and get me something else. She's now calling me an asshole because the lessons are non-refundable and is really upset with me. I've told her I don't want to drive and I feel like she's trying to change me. Now she's being immature and refuses to drive me anywhere and says I can Uber if I want to go somewhere. Even if it's somewhere she's going already. I get Ubers to and from work and have a good job. She said she's tired of always being the driver and likes to be the passenger sometimes.
Story time about how I lied to my parents about having a boyfriend for 4 years. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My parents are super strict. Growing up, I could not have any guy friends. I wasn't even allowed to go over to my girlfriends' houses. At school, I was pretty popular, and the fact that my parents didn't let me have any boyfriends made the boys actually want me more, which is something my dad actually hated. Boys would call our house asking to talk to me, and my dad would grill me about it. So I finally decided to tell him that because he doesn't let me date any boys, that boys want me more. He laughed and said that that wasn't true, and that most likely I was just provoking these boys. Obviously, this really upset me. My dad was always really controlling. When I turned 16, I decided I wanted to get my own job. This way I could have some more freedom and just meet more people outside of school. I started working at a local restaurant and quickly made friends with everyone who was working there. They were all pretty much my age, especially one boy. Let's call him Rick. Rick and I hit it off right away. I had a huge crush on him instantly and I could tell that he liked me too. But of course my strict parents were always present in my mind, so I tried my best to stay away from Rick just so that I wouldn't develop any feelings, which I already had, who am I kidding? One day Rick asked me if I wanted to take my break with him and I said yes. He sat in his car for 30 minutes and just talked the entire time. I started falling in love with him. We talked so much and he was so kind and so funny. The next few days at work we were basically inseparable. Finally at the end of the week he asked me if I wanted to be his girlfriend and I said yes. Without a moment of hesitation, I said yes, knowing that my parents would not want that at all. So here's when I told him that we needed to keep this a secret. He wanted to just speak to my parents, but I begged him not to. Thankfully, he understood. The only time we were able to spend together was at work. And we did this for a full year. When I turned 17, my parents insisted that I quit my job so that I could focus on school. I pretty much had to listen to them, so I did. This meant that Rick and I barely ever saw each other. So I started sneaking my boyfriend into my room every single night. My parents had literally no idea. I snuck my boyfriend Rick into my room every single night for a full year. The only time we ever got close to getting caught, the smoke alarm in our house went off, and as soon as we heard it, Rick jumped out through my window. My room was on the first floor, so this wasn't really an issue at all. I finally graduated from high school and started going to college. It became way easier to hide my relationship from my parents because I was living in a dorm. Rick would come visit me every single weekend, and my parents would come to visit me every now and then. Even when I was in college, you guys, my parents were still super strict. So one day I decided to ask my dad when I could have a boyfriend. He said when I was living under my own roof and paying my own bills. So the following year, that's exactly what I did. I was able to get a good job in my field, and so did Rick. So we put our money together and his parents helped us to get an apartment. But here's the thing, I didn't want my parents to know that I had a boyfriend this whole time. So instead I told them that Rick was my roommate who I met in college and that I finally just decided that I wanted my own freedom. My dad was really proud of me for taking the initiative, which was crazy to me. He said he was proud of me. My mom, on the other hand, definitely did not want me moving in with some guy. So I invited Rick over to my parents' house. They met him for a little bit and they actually liked him. Fast forward 6 years, Rick and I are married and my parents don't know that he was my boyfriend for 4 years. They think that we started dating after we moved in together. I kind of want to tell my parents, but I'm not sure. I think they would get really upset and possibly not speak to me. What do you think I should do?
Am I the asshole for refusing to disclose how much I make to my boyfriend? My boyfriend and I have been dating for almost a year and he doesn't know how much I make. I've been taken advantage of financially by boyfriends in the past, so I keep what I make and any signs of wealth out of sight. I don't have a lot of obvious expensive things, but my bags and clothes are expensive brands and I have a lot of toys like an RV, spider bike, and some other things. He hasn't caught on to the fact that they're mine because I usually leave them at my parents' house. He isn't wealthy and he told me he makes about $60K and I don't feel like letting him know what I make. I pay for more of our dates, but I usually do split and we never go anywhere fancy. He's been annoyed that I don't discuss money with him or what I really do for work. I tell him I work in tech, which he feels like isn't enough information.
Am I the asshole for refusing to remove a piece of jewelry at the request of my friend on her wedding day? My 31 female friend, 30 female, we'll call Mary, got married last week, and I was in her bridal party. For context, we are friends from high school, and all of the other bridesmaids were her friends from college, who I hadn't met until her bachelorette party several months ago. I also wasn't familiar with anyone at this wedding outside of Mary's immediate family. I was supposed to attend the wedding with my own fiancé, but he contracted COVID 5 days before we were supposed to leave and made the choice to stay home for everyone's safety. I tested negative, and we don't live together. Our 5th anniversary of our first date was 2 months ago, and he got me a beautiful opal necklace on a gold chain, specifically to wear to the wedding because it's complemented my bridesmaid's dress. I asked Mary in our bridal group chat if she was all right with us wearing our own jewelry to the wedding. She said no problem. Day of the wedding comes, all of us bridesmaids and Mary meet early in the morning for pictures outside the chapel. Mary sees my necklace and loves it, and actually asks if she could switch her necklace with mine. Some other bridesmaids chime in and say that it would be her something borrowed. I tried as politely as I could to tell her that my fiancé got this for me to wear to the wedding, and especially since he can't be here, I'd like to keep it on. Mary and the other bridesmaids were persistent, saying it was her wedding and her pictures, and I wasn't being accommodating, but I firmly told them no. Mary then said if I could at least take it off, since it looked nicer than her own jewelry. Again, I told her I'd rather not. I'd like to share the wedding photos of myself in the necklace with my fiancé. She was not happy. Neither of the bridesmaids were either. I received a lot of cold shoulders and dirty looks the rest of the ceremony and reception. I felt awful. After the first dance, Mary's sister came up to me to tell me just how upset Mary was and rude it was that I upset her on her big day. Am I the asshole?
Am I the a-hole for kicking out my vegan sister after she threw away my dog and I's food? So a few weeks ago, my sister broke up with a longtime boyfriend of 3 years. They lived together, so I opened my home to her and let her stay until she got back on her feet. She's a hardcore vegan, and while I don't care about her dietary choices, I do not believe she should push it on others the way she does so heavily. So anyways, a few days into her staying at my home, I got home from work to see my fridge was almost empty. I thought maybe she had cleaned the fridge for me, but just 2 days ago I went shopping and bought things like bacon, steak, etc. to make my lunches. I went into her room and I asked her what happened to all my food. I figured it was just some sort of mistake, but she informed me that she purposefully cleansed my life of all the dead animals I eat in the street. At first, I didn't even believe it, but then it spiraled into a huge argument where she slammed the door in my face. In my own home. I called my mother to let her know what was going on and to get her opinion, where I ended up getting a scolding for how I treated my sister, and how I should know she is going through a lot. At that point, I just hung up because obviously I'm not going to be happy when $50 worth of food is just thrown out for no good reason. Despite this, I figured I would appease my other family members and let her stay, but I let her know she was on thin ice with me. The following day, I fed my dog and went to work. I told her she was not to touch any of my belongings or throw anything away or I would kick her out. She protested, but I told her I was serious and left. When I returned home, my dog's bowl was empty, so I went to refill it in case he was hungry again later on. When I go to get the food, it's gone. I barged into her room and asked her what's the deal with the food being missing. She said she threw out my dog's food and fed him bread instead. My dog isn't even supposed to have gluten. It makes him itchy. She then got in my face telling me the dogs are happier living a vegan lifestyle. I told her my dog would be happier with her living a lifestyle outside of my home, and told her she had 8 hours to get her stuff and go to my mother's. I went out to buy more dog food, and once I returned, not only was her room a wreck, but my dog was gone. I called my mother to explain the situation, and asked if she had a dog with her, and she exploded on me again about how awful I was for not supporting my sister, and that the dog was not at the house with her. A mutual friend of ours let me know she had a dog at my mother's house. However, my mother and sister continued to spin the story to our family, and now they all refuse to speak to me, especially since I had the police help me retrieve him. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister stay in my home despite pushing her vegan lifestyle on me and my pet? Edit. I was starting to feel conflicted on if I really was being sick and overdramatic for kicking out my sister in need, or if my family really does just enable her. And just to be clear, the dog is safe. I made sure to note it got the police involved, and the dog is currently with me. Edit 2. For more clarification, since people keep asking, my sister and mother only have a 15-year age difference. They're more like friends than mother and daughter. My mother would do anything to please her. I, on the other hand, was born after my father died, and my mother held some sort of resentment to me, which is why I left the home at 18, while my sister stayed until 22 years of age. I didn't have much contact for a while, but when I heard she needed help, I thought this would mend things. Obviously, it did not. It made my relationship with my family worse. They're both vegan, and it also seems they told other family members that I shoved or hit her, which never happened. I am considering fully cutting ties. However, I am worried since she knows my home address. And at 3, she didn't stay at my mother's because she was housing my aunt and her children for Thanksgiving, which of course I was not invited to. I saw my sister on Facebook saying she needed a place to stay, and this whole big long sob story, so I took her in. Am I the a-hole for calling my wife selfish and ungrateful when she suggested we cut back on saving for our son's college, rather than spending for her entertainment? I, male 29, work full-time to support my son, 15 months old, and wife, 28. She's unemployed but is a stay-at-home mom and we're both happy with that, usually. Recently, money's been tight as I haven't been bringing as much home. I work in sales on commission, so I've been trying to figure out how to make ends meet while looking for a better job. We spend about $60 a month on a 4 to 5 streaming services, HBO/Netflix, etc. And my wife spends about $50 a month in mobile games, and over $100 in ordering lunch through Uber Eats. I wouldn't mind if we could afford it, but right now we can't. When I brought up cutting back, she said streaming services and mobile games were the only breaks she had from working at keeping up the house and caring for our son, and ordering out made lunchtime a break instead of more work for her. I asked her to please stop ordering out and to get rid of some of the streaming services or the mobile games. She said that's silly, and it was the hair dye and teeth whitening I pay for that was why we're short each month, and I shouldn't be so vain and to give this up for the family. I spend about $150 for them every few months, and if it was just me, that'd be one thing, but I get both done for work. Believe me, I wish it wasn't the case, but people are just more open and friendly with me when I'm not a ginger dude with brown teeth. I don't want to have to do it, but I feel I have to, so I'm on a level playing field. I said she had plenty of time to relax when I got home, since I always cook and clean up after dinner and take care of our son until bedtime. She told me that doesn't mean anything when she can't do the things she enjoys, as if she didn't enjoy spending time with me, and that we would have plenty of money if I didn't put $200 a month away for our son's college fund. I reminded her we agreed to this before our son was born, and that if we didn't keep at it, we weren't going to have enough when he turns 18. She said we didn't even know if he wanted to go to college yet, and that I had no idea how hard it was raising a child. I have plenty experience feeding and changing diapers, and that our work at home is just as stressful as my job, if not more. I might be the a-hole already, but this is the part that really stuck with me. I said she was ungrateful for the work I was doing, and selfish to think of her own entertainment over providing for our son. She snapped back at me that I was being abusive both emotionally and by trying to withhold money. And at that point, I was just floored and walked out. I'm hiding away in my home office now. She's never said anything like that to me before. And to be honest, I don't really know what she means as far as withholding money, since I've always given her what she asks for, as far as I can remember. Is it really abusive to cut back on spending? Did I go too far? Edit. I wasn't very clear on the Uber Eats thing, so for people asking questions, I don't know exactly how much it is, as I haven't ever added it all up, but it's 3 times a week, so between $100 and $400 a month. Also, I appreciate you all for taking time to share your thoughts. Am I the a-hole for confronting my friend and ruining our kids' friendship? Okay, I'll try to keep this short. So I have this BFF, 40s female that is man-hungry. She picks these men who are all sorts of wrong, is a serial wife, and legit flip-flops from one ex back to the other, and plays them against each other. She constantly comes for advice, and I've gotten to the point of telling her that I think she's making a mistake, but I'll support her no matter what. I always felt she's a good person, it means well, but kinda screwed up in a few things. No big deal. She has 2 kids my kid's age, and they were super close. We were like a little family. We were always together. She randomly last minute asked me over summer to watch one of her kids for a week, due to some work conference. I was in the middle of a house renovation and sharing a room with my kid. I wanted to help, but it was impossible. I felt awful, and I told her no. But then I tried to help by seeing if the conference she was going to had a Zoom option, which is when I found out there was no conference at all. She was very specific with the man's detail that then proved easy to double-check. Her ex lived in a neighboring state. I never told her I knew, but then she kept giving me details of her trip that proved that she was in fact going to a state and not where she said. She texted at the airport, she texted me about events in real time, and none of it was true. I was super disappointed that she lied, and tried to manipulate me with a working single mom angle instead of just being honest. But in the end, I decided to never let her know that I knew. She kept lying about the trip after the fact too, which pissed me off, but I tried to big picture it that our kids were besties. And she was probably embarrassed, so just let it go. Flash forward a few weeks to her wanting to get her kids some passes for something that we had passes for. But my passes were restricted, So I had one last day to upgrade them so we could go together. I spoke to her a lot about the cost, made sure she was buying them, then upgraded to the tune of $300. Every time I tried to make plans, there was some lame excuse. Then she started pulling away, canceling plans, etc. Every time I tried to make plans for these tickets, there would be another excuse. Like one kid's birthday. Let's use our ticks. No, they're grounded. Then she takes an impromptu road trip with them to the zoo and posts it on Facebook. Gave me some lame excuse that it was last minute. Whatever. Final straw was she canceled for my kid's birthday party. She said her kids were sick. Then I see them on Facebook at the beach. So finally, I confronted her and told her I was upset she lied about a party. She then said, I'm not a liar. To which I then just snapped and unleashed a barrage of, like the passes you said you bought? Like the conference that you never went to, etc. We never spoke again, and now our kids don't either. I feel so badly that this mom drama ruined our kids' friendship. Am I the a-hole for confronting her? Edited to add. Time frame was we were friends for years, and the trip lie to my kid's birthday was roughly a month and a half.
Am I wrong for blowing up at my dad for asking me to pay for a family dinner? I, 27 male, lost my mom at 15 in a road accident. I was a fairly airheaded kid in school and was graded academically. My dad, 48 male, remarried to Isabel 10 months later for my care. The 2 years after my mom's passing were extremely hard on me. Isabel was temperamental with me, sometimes nice or almost ignoring me. She had a son who was 2 years older. We practically had no relationship as he moved for college around the time they got married. When I was 17, I was going through old pictures. I ran into some domestic pictures of Isabel and my dad. I realized many of them were from Seattle. Only time my dad was there was when he had been working on site for weeks the year before my mom died. There had been a fight between my parents about the on-sites not bringing the family extra money. I realized that my dad was probably cheating on my mom with Isabel prior to her death. I don't know if my mom knew this, though I think so. I kept it quiet because Isabel was pregnant with my stepsister at this time. I found out later that year that my mom had left me as her sole inheritor, which was quite some money. Her parents' inheritance money and 50% of the house. This had helped me pay for college. My dad challenged this will, causing some delay in executing it. Some words were said about my mom, which I didn't like. My dad also had taken $6,000 from my account. I let it go because I honestly was happy to have money for college. After moving out of state to college, I've been low contact with my dad. I had a court wedding due to COVID and have a 7-month-old now. 2 weeks ago, I was in town and my dad decided to meet me and my family, which I agreed to. It was at a nicer restaurant in town and along came Isabel, my stepsister, and Isabel's son, his girlfriend, and 2 kids. The dinner was good until Isabel brought the house up and mentioned my stepbrother's wife losing her job. I deflected this to a private chat with my dad. No fucking way am I giving it up. This made the conversation much more difficult. When the check came, my dad asked me to take care of the bill and I refused, asking them to split it. I had no idea everyone was coming and had no contact with any of them prior to this. My dad started to bring up how I had a nest egg and my mom babied me. Suddenly, my stepbrother said, "Dude, just get it. You'll be fine." I kind of saw red at this moment and I told him to shut the fuck up and that my mom gave me the money because my dad was an adulterer. Isabel got in the middle and asked me not to talk to my dad like that, and my wife tried to calm me down. I said I don't want anything to do with this family and to keep our relationship just between me and my dad. Anyways, more words were shared and I handed them the cash on my side and left. My wife said I shouldn't have acted like that but still had my side. So, was I wrong here for my reaction?
Am I the asshole for not letting my dad get a paternity test? My dad wants to get a paternity test because he's recently convinced that I'm not his daughter. My mom ran away to another country with some guy when I was 8 years old. Lately, my dad's gotten really sure that she was cheating on him long before and that I'm actually someone else's baby. He keeps talking about how paternity fraud is a big issue and he needs a paternity test to be sure he's not getting sucked into raising another man's kid. I don't know why this is only coming up now, and honestly it really hurts my feelings that he's like, I don't think you're really my kid. I'm biased and obviously I don't think I'm a difficult kid. I get good grades, I don't drink or do drugs, and I don't talk back. So why does it feel like he's so desperate for me to not be his? Does he really hate being my dad that much? Even though I'm pretty sure I am his real daughter because we look pretty similar, I'm kind of scared of what might happen if he finds out I'm not. Like, would he stop caring about me? Would he kick me out? I have nowhere to go. So even though he's fully set on getting a test, I'm refusing and he's mad about it. I even told him I would consider doing it when I'm 18 because I'm 16 now. But apparently he needs it right now. Am I the asshole for refusing?
Am I the asshole for leaving my boyfriend stuck at a party for a joke? So I've been with my boyfriend for about 6 months. We don't live together, but I spend a lot of my time at his place. A week ago or so, I was feeling quite sick. Not wanting to drive home, I spent the night at his place. He woke me up at about 5 a.m, and to my great embarrassment, I had wet the bed. I helped him clean up the best I could. I had a temp of about 103.8, and he took me to the hospital, and they kept me overnight. A few days later, when I saw him again, I apologized for what happened. He told me it's alright, and that he got me a gift. He pulled out a package of adult diapers and threw them at me. I told him that I didn't think that it was very funny, and explained that I was embarrassed, but he thought it was hilarious. I decided to let it go and talk about it later. We went to a party that night. I drove since he doesn't have a car. After he had a few beers, he started loudly telling people what had happened, forgetting to mention that I was sick and had a high fever, just the part of me wetting the bed and him buying the diapers. He encouraged my friends to joke about it, and after trying to explain but being talked over or laughed at, I left and went home. My boyfriend is obviously quite upset I left without him. I just didn't want to be stuck in a car with him for an hour. He sent me several texts since then, most of which are calling me too sensitive and not able to take a joke. Some of my friends agree with him. So am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for shaming my in-laws after my mother-in-law told a romantic story? I don't like my in-laws. I'll be honest, we've always had issues. Mother-in-law grew up wealthy, and as of right now, I would classify them as full-blown rich, but when they got married, her family disowned her, and they were poor for a little while. The one thing I actually find very redeeming in mother-in-law is that despite how vain and materialistic she is, she really did love her husband more than the money. On the other hand, my biggest issue with my mother-in-law and father-in-law is that they love each other way more than they loved their kids, and mother-in-law actually looks down on me for prioritizing my children and makes snide comments that she feels bad for her son. We were talking about Christmas recently, and mother-in-law made fun of people who don't like the materialism because that is the best part. She then told me what she clearly considered a sweet story about when they were poor, father-in-law worked extra shifts and saved to buy her a diamond ring because she didn't get an engagement ring. My husband made a joke comment about how he probably didn't get anything that Christmas, and mother-in-law laughed and admitted that he did get something from the dollar store because she did the budget and spent all the money on father-in-law, and father-in-law spent all the money he saved on her ring. She laughed like it was funny, but I didn't think it was, and my kids looked at me kind of confused because in our house, Christmas is all about the kids. Mother-in-law called me out on making a face, and I was honest and told her that that was pretty weird, and in my world, kids get Christmas presents first. Some years my husband and I don't even exchange gifts. Mother-in-law got defensive and said that my husband can't even remember that year, but she can, and said marriage is forever. Kids leave and have new families. I said that I stood by what I said, and mother-in-law seemed upset, and father-in-law said that I was just jealous because my husband wouldn't do that for me. It definitely made the mood weird, and when we left, mother-in-law muttered that I like making her look bad to my kids, which I don't think is true. They are just perceptive and curious and have their own opinions of her. Am I the asshole?